Okay, hey everybody, Tim Timmons here with another 10,000 minute experiment. And to my right, y muy donis.
Yeah, that's
To my hot left, I just figured I'd try something different.
I like it.
Hot left. We got Chris Cleveland over
What's
here.
up?
Straight in front of us.
Yeah, hot front.
Whoa.
That's the hot front.
At the hot front, everybody, we've got Mr. Mike Erre.
Hello.
So that's it, man. Thanks for being on, Mike.
Let me tell you, this is the highlight of my week right here.
Yes.
And
He's been texting me every day. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love what you're doing, Tim. Always
Right.
a pleasure to do this. And then the fact that you've got two very intelligent people with you makes this all the more interesting.
Touche.
You're right.
Yeah, so to the hot front. So, Mike, we are so happy to have you. I get to hang out with you a whole bunch. We have spent so much time together over the years, and then now it was like a how many year hiatus?
It was a 10-year hiatus.
10-year hiatus.
And then there was a mutual embracing via phone, via
Yeah.
Zoom, and then via
Little
in person.
hot front.
Hot fronts.
Hot
Yes,
front.
Yeah.
there were two hot fronts that
Collided.
met.
Well,
And that's
perfect.
what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Cold front.
Hot fronts.
Cold front.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the new practice.
Well, here's the question we're going to start out with today. The practice is how far is too far, Mike? That's
Yes.
that's what we're.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key question that we've always asked. And for me, it's very, very simple. If your parents cannot be in the room with you,
Yeah.
then you can't do it.
Wow.
So
I found myself doing things in front of my parents that I shouldn't do now, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
This
well,
turn-
I just made sure I was never in front of my parents.
Well, I was on the phone with my dad the other day, and I backed into a car. I've never done this in my life.
Oh,
And I dropped a dirty word on the phone with my dad. I called
yeah,
my
you
wife.
did.
I was like,
Yeah, you
"Babe,
did. Hot mic.
I said this in front of my dad." I was like, well. She's like, he knows who you are at this point. It's fine.
He's aware.
He's aware. He is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
and he probably had never heard that word before.
Yes.
Or that phrase. Was it a phrase or was it a word?
It was just a singular word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a
Was the
singular.
Poopy
emphasis
pants?
on the first letter?
Thank you.
Or on
my
what came
goodness.
after?
Is this 20 questions?
You know, I think it.
Who's the guest here?
Most of the words just kind of linger out of my mouth, so they don't come out very harsh. But it was smooth. You could
nice.
could tell it had been recited and practiced. It wasn't like my first day, so
Yeah.
he probably
this
read
was-
between
yeah.
the lines. Yeah.
Gosh.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm excited to see how we get into blessed with that.
Yeah. I'll tie it in. Don't worry.
You blessed your father. Right there.
Wow, this is so right. Well, Michael, we've been talking through or trying to rethink. You know, we were trying to
Yes.
rethink our thinking on certain things that we've always thought and heard and learned. And you are so great at this. You are kind of the king of this, and I love your
I'm the
view of
king.
this. I mean, in a lot of ways, you're the king. But right now, we've kind of gone
love
through just this idea of being blessed, and that's always been this thing where it was this almost a financial, or we got things out of
Yes.
it. Or, man, I just
Yes.
got my job. I'm so blessed. We talked to Shonda Pierce last week, who's had just a crazy journey in her life.
Wow.
And just trying to figure out what's it look like to still say I'm blessed even in the midst of crap. Even, and I say crap really well because I feel like that was close to the word that you said, Chris.
I wish it was.
No, I don't. I think there was a different word that Chris said.
You think it was different?
Just
Yeah.
based on
He said
just
4
some
letters.
clues. Yeah. Yeah.
Wish it was.
on clues. Oh, the clue game. That's
Yeah.
so strong. Well, so the practice this past week was to see others as blessed. So it's
love
been, we're seeing ourselves as blessed and just saying, you know what, in the midst of my stuff, if
Right.
you will, again, I'm getting
Yes.
closer, Chris, stuff, no?
Yes.
Cold.
It's still cold. That I'm even blessed. I'm being made whole even in the midst of this stuff. And actually, that's probably the most beautiful place is when I'm being made whole in those
Yeah.
places. So this week, the practice has been, the experiment is like, what would it look like for us to see other people as blessed, even when they're doing things that we don't love, or even if it's just my kids or whatever, we see them as blessed. They're being made whole all week long. I don't see people that way generally. That's not my normal way of seeing people. Mike, do you have thoughts even just on the word blessed?
Oh man, I have thoughts. I mean, it's one of those words that's so cliche like love. when you understand what it is, it's the most powerful of concepts, but it's buried under mounds and mounds of cliche and overuse. And I love that you're rethinking about words like that, right? So we use the word bless in so many different ways. I say a blessing, I look for a blessing, I ask for a blessing, I bless somebody, I bless God, God blesses me, God bless the USA. I mean,
Yes.
we use that word all over the place. And what I really like that you're tapping into is that there are circumstantial aspects to being blessed. Like there are times when God blesses somebody with something. But the way Jesus uses the word, it's a conferring of divine favor upon the unlikely. So his most famous usage of blessed, and there are two Hebrew words and two Greek words that kind of correspond to each other.
Of course.
That have to do with of course they do.
mean,
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't go over the Latin, but if you want to go over those that's super great. Super great.
Well, no, the one of the Hebrew words is barach, and I don't know that I'm saying it correctly, but if you put a on it, it sounds good. And that word, the word in a noun form means knee, but to verb in the verb form it means to kneel, and so like to bless. To be blessed or to bless in that instance is to receive praise or to give it. And so it's a worship word to bless. So the Jews have this incredible practice called barakot, which is the practice of blessing God for things that we all take for granted. I bless God for the ability to use the restroom. They have a blessing for that. They have a blessing for food that is prepared well and bread that comes from the earth and wine that comes from grapes. And it's the idea that we're the constant recipients of blessing, right? So our response is this constant blessing of God for all of the things that we enjoy, but would normally take for granted. There's blessings for rainbows and blessings for thunderstorms. I mean, it's so common and mundane. It's this beautiful recapturing of the word applied to God.
How different is blessed and thankful?
They're connected.
Okay.
But to kneel before God, whether in attitude or in action, is the response of gratitude for sure. Gratitude is a different word. The other Hebrew word, just really quick, means to speak well of. And so I can bless my children by speaking well of them. And when you get into the Greek words, which we don't need to cover, but they correspond. When Jesus blesses the people at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, he is not saying their circumstances are advantageous. Right? The people he's blessing are the poor in spirit, the mourners, the persecuted, the peacemakers, the merciful. He's conferring divine favor. He's announcing divine favor upon them. Almost in spite of their circumstances. The punch of the Beatitudes is that these aren't the people that the Jews would have normally called blessed, right? We all know this. Blessed. Right. We're circumstantially blessed. We have some instances of rabbinic prayers later on in rabbinic literature where God, thank you that I'm not a woman, a Gentile, or a slave. And so the idea to be blessed was to be a Jewish man of some means, and that was what it was to be blessed. Jesus radically redefines that, but he confers that identity upon people who you would never have looked at and said, oh, those are really great circumstances. And so what Jesus does is he opens up the exact possibility you're exploring, which is that the blessing of God, the favor of God, is possible beyond whether I'm having a good day or not. So we've Americanized the word, we've individuated the word, and we've turned it into a consumer word, right? Where I'm blessed if I'm happy. Interestingly, the other word for blessed in the Old Testament, like is found in Psalm 1, blessed is the one who does not walk with scoffers or in the way of sinners. That word actually, the root of it comes from another word that has to do with if you're lost, but find a sign to tell you you're going the right way, you are blessed, you are happy. It's not just general happiness from circumstance, but it's vindication of your way of life. So the idea would be If I'm on a trail, I'm hopelessly lost, but I find a marker that shows me I'm going in the right direction. There's a sense of relief and joy that I feel that I've been affirmed I'm traveling the right way. Morally, there's this sense of walking the right path. There's the joy of walking the right path because that path will be vindicated. Humility doesn't always taste good when you're living it,
Right.
but it will be vindicated in the way that God will bless it. And I know that's a whole lot.
Yeah.
But the idea is that it is far less to do with circumstances and much more to do with a kind of identity that we carry into a life as opposed to something that life gives us or doesn't.
I think you thought I said blessed. I said bereft.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm good with bereft too. I got a lot on that.
So how does this look as we're sorry, I thought that was really funny
That's
in my
gonna haunt me tomorrow.
Yeah.
2:30
Sorry, Mike.
p.m. I'm gonna laugh. It's just stuck
Tomorrow
in
you'll
there.
laugh.
It's stuck in there. It's so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mike, how does this play when we're seeing somebody else as blessed?
Well, so often we will look at people, in Paul's words, from a worldly point of view. And so we will use, and what he means is just the status markers and circumstantial markers that are common to the way that we evaluate things as, and what we call normal. So to look at somebody as blessed is to look beyond their circumstances, and it's to look beyond their outward appearance or their affiliations or labels.
Wow.
And to not only want to see divine favor upon them, but to act in ways that are congruent with its already existing in them. You know what I mean? So when if I'm blessing my children, I'm calling something out that already exists. I'm not conveying something new. I'm seeing something and recognizing it, right? So when I bless God, what I'm saying is, God, I recognize you are the author of every good and perfect gift. So I bless you in response for this. When I'm doing that with my kids, I'm seeing this is true of my child, and I'm calling it forth. I'm calling it out.
Wow.
So to see other people as blessed means I'm not looking at them in circumstances, whether it's, hey, they're doing great or they're not doing great. And I'm not looking at them based on whatever labels, economic, racial, any of those things, political. What I'm doing instead is I believe divine favor already rests upon them, and I'm trying to identify it so I can call it out. I'm calling something out that already exists.
Calling something out that already exists. I mean, think about that as far as blessing somebody else. What would that look like for us to actually call out what already exists in the people around us? Just think of the repercussions of such a practice as this. Who needs your blessing this week?
So I cultivate a radar.
Give me an example of what that radar looks like as you're walking through your day or with your kids, or what is the radar, the invitation that we are invited into?
So for me, one of the prayers I pray regularly is, God, I want to be an agent of blessing and kindness. And for me, I naturally do that verbally. For like my wife, she naturally does that, acts of service. My prayer is that I would be awake enough to see the good, not the happy and not the positive, but the good in situations with other people, so that I'm able to draw attention to those things.
Wow.
Right? So it could be as simple as, hey, Moy, I really noticed that this was hard for you, and I'm so proud that you stepped into that. And it's just letting her know that she was seen and known, and literally you've bent your knee towards her to give her a gift of calling something out that's already true of her.
Wow. Wow.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so with our kids or spouses, and obviously the people it's hardest to do with are the people closest to us. We're far more attentive to the failures and disappointments, that they're provoking. But even to sit in a restaurant or in service industries, and to be a person of kindness and blessing. I mean, so many of these disciplines, Tim, and you know this better than anybody, they require us to be awake and not sleepwalking.
Yes.
So your whole 10,000 minute crusade is designed to keep us from sleepwalking through life.
Yeah.
And the practices are just ways of staying awake.
Yes, that's so well
So,
said.
so when we're oriented to somebody in blessing, I'm not looking for the bad in them. I'm looking for the good, believing that God is at work in them.
Wow.
Believing that God loves them beyond what I ever could, that God is attentive to them.
Yeah.
And that I have, whether tiny or in big ways, the opportunity to bring and call forth blessing by just recognizing what's happening. I'm not bringing anything to the table. That's one way that we would understand blessing maybe differently than some religious traditions. I'm not conferring something that's absent. I'm calling forth something that's already there.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that makes a ton of sense. As we're blessing God, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It's not
I've
like
always
we're
wondered
saying,
about
hey,
that.
God, I really want you to do this. No, it's God, you are this. And so I just call attention to it.
Or thank
I've
you
been-
for this. It's
Yes.
thank you for who you are is the blessing. That
Yeah,
would be,
absolutely. I mean, the ultimate blessing to God's people in the scriptures is God's presence. But, for me, and that's where blessing gets super interesting, because for me, blessing is the circumstance that comes from, God favoring my right way of life.
Right.
And so
Right.
we want to war against that, by saying, no. Blessing is something far more important and deep than that conception.
So can anybody here think of a time when you have been blessed by somebody else in that way, or that you were able to see somebody else is blessed or bless them in this way, even in this past season or past week?
I mean, I have one that's really uncommon, and I hesitate to share it because it's out of the course of normal life, but it was something that was just so powerful. Because the interesting bit about blessing is, of course, you receive it when you give it. And so
Explain
to
that.
to bless another is to be blessed. Right? I mean, the blessing of my children is to take a step into the formation of me being the kind of person who blesses and who is aware of those sorts of things. And so not only am I formed by it, but there's a sense of that second Hebrew word of walking in the right path, right? I'm almost rewarded by blessing, not circumstantially, but simply by enjoying the good that has been put out into the world and another's reception of it.
Yeah, it makes everything better.
Yes.
Your whole world becomes better when I bless somebody else.
Yes.
As the blesser and the blessee.
Absolutely. Yes. And the most profound moments of my life were at times when I was seeking to bless another, but there was something that happened in that kind of chemistry of blessing where I came away far more joyful than whoever the recipient was. You know what I mean? It's the chemistry of the kingdom, right? Where good multiplies in on itself. And so it never kind of returns void. So anyway, I mean, there was a time when sacred space is important to me. So Disney World, Epcot is a place that's very sacred to me. It's weird, I know. But I will go there for 2 or 3 days by myself and have the most incredibly, don't laugh at me.
No, I was loving it, Chris. Keep going.
Because Chris was laughing at me. And so
I
No,
was just trying to
it's-
think with kids how you got 3 days by yourself anywhere.
that's true. That's because my wife is a freaking rock star.
Yeah, no doubt.
But she'll let me go down and I will take a journal and I'll just walk. I'll just walk the park. I don't know, I'll walk 15, 16 miles and I'll just sit and reflect. And I was in one of those moments and I'd asked God that morning, hey, would you pay attention to me today? And would you show me you're paying attention to me today? Which is, a weird prayer. But I'd love to share my faith. And I don't mean evangelize, but I mean share my faith with someone today. So I'm awake all day just saying, okay, Lord, what,
Yeah.
where are you? Nothing. I mean, it's dry, distant, silent. Nothing's happening. Fine. I sit in this kind of bench out of the way. And these 2 girls, probably 18, 19, show up. And there are many open benches around. Of course, they say, hey, can we sit next to you? I'm like, absolutely. We begin to talk. And one of them, it's her birthday. and she's there with her best friend, and I just start asking about birthday plans, and she begins to just talk about how she's not at home because her parents really don't have time for her and aren't interested in her. And so Disney has been a place for her to escape, and she comes with her best friend because her best friend is kind of the only one that's really attentive to her and paying attention and whatever. And as they're talking, I mean, the voice, in the head is just going, hey, here you go. And so I just start thinking, okay, well, that's cool. And we keep talking, and you can see she's coming from this really tragic, broken background. Her best friend is from the same background, and it's just awful that she is not acknowledged by her parents at all on this day. And so I rarely carry cash, but I had some cash, and I just do the dumbest, weirdest thing, but I'm just like, hey, on behalf of the parents that I'm sure you wish you had, I'd love to, treat you to a birthday dinner. And she just bursts out, sobbing. And I couldn't even tell the story without sobbing. And then I asked her if I could just pray. And again, I don't normally do this, but I'm like, I'd love to just pray a blessing over you. So I just pray this thing. And these are not religious people, and they're not whatever, but it was the most powerful. I literally, after that about half an hour moment, I went over to a different bench, and I just wept for probably 20 minutes. Wow. It was one of the most, powerful sort of moments. Yeah. And here's this image of being sort of a spiritual parent, an agent of blessing. And it was so powerful, unlocked all this stuff in me. And I know that's kind of a dramatic story, but it unlocked my imagination in ways that still sort of resound. So when I'm praying, I'm asking, how do I be an agent of blessing to wife, kids, family, strangers, blah, 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 blah. And so that's what it looks like for me. It looks like the radar, which is just the cultivation of, are you awake? Awake, yeah. Am I paying attention? Yep. Because I believe there are burning bushes all around us, right? And I'm too sleepy to see them. And then it's the courage at times to do the dumb, weird, dorky thing, which is to try to act as an agent of creative goodness. Yeah. Not because I have anything to offer, but because I'm just calling out what's there. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not a savior thing. It's not I didn't come to that girl's rescue. She rescued me. I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth of the story.
Yeah, it's like when people say, "Oh, I've been working with students, and I'm way more blessed than they are." That whole thing. It's like, oh, that's actually could be true, not just a cliche.
Yes, exactly. That's the alchemy of the kingdom. To be an agent of blessing in that way is utterly transformative. At least it's been for me. So I don't obviously do it well often or whatever.
Yeah, but when we're sober enough, when we're awake enough, when we're aware enough, we can see what's actually happening.
Yeah, I'm looking around, believing my Father is always at work, and that there are things to call out and point out, even right here, that are worthy of being noted. Yeah. Either Godward or towards the other person. Yeah. And, obviously it's kind of the same thing. But when Paul says to pray without ceasing, that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about this conscious stream of sentences, right, that I'm uttering all throughout the day, but it's this posture where I'm just constantly blessing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I read about that Jewish practice that it really, that was brought home for me. The idea that you bless God for every little dumb thing. So Tim, one of the things I love that you do that I've picked up is, God, thanks for another day. Thanks for waking me up this morning. Mm-hmm. That's just a way of staying awake. Yeah. Right. Yeah. None of that is guaranteed or promised. And so I just sit in recognition and I bless God. I bend my knee towards God in acknowledgement that today's a gift.
Wow. I mean, gosh, it takes even the idea of us being blessed even more, that we're blessed by God. I mean, that he's actually calling out the things that he's already made in us, and we're awakening to who we really are.
Yeah.
all day
Right.
long.
Exactly.
Over
Yeah.
and over and over. And then we get to then go be the blessing because we've been blessed to other
Well,
people.
and what we are is blessers. I mean, that's the thing that's so by calling out good and kindness in others, that's the blessing that's coming back, right? Is that's being called out of me.
Right.
And so yeah, when like God will look at Mary and say, "Greetings, you who are highly favored." She didn't have to do anything to get that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's who she is already, and that's just being noted. You know?
I mean, do you guys have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm reflecting. I'm like going through my past and seeing how much I really have been blessed by people. Like I just thought, man, I'm so lucky to have found someone who like wants to mentor me. But to think about it as like there's someone who's calling me as my true self constantly. Like, and these people came in times where I was totally sleepwalking, you know, or in moments where I was like, man, I just don't know what direction to take. And to see that God was constantly blessing me through people who were looking to bless. I'm like, what the heck? I just thought I got lucky. And I had mentioned it before, just being blessed made me feel uncomfortable because I felt like I owed something. But to just have this moment now to look back, I'm like, man, it was just also them wanting to be blessers. I don't know. It's just doing something to me right now. I have to be honest.
Yeah.
It's humbling me. And I think too, just I also teach, and it's easy for me to just be in a kid's corner, but to know that I'm blessing them by telling them the things I see in them. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
maybe blessings are around all the time. And I just thought I was having a good day. And so I
Right.
said something
They're
nice.
just trying to be nice.
Yeah.
So much bigger.
Yeah.
And it's like, man.
Well, we've reduced it to a love language
right.
or a, words of affirmation. And it's like,
Yeah.
but in the Bible, words have spiritual power. I mean, I personally, and I can give you a verse for this, but I personally think that in the fullness of the kingdom, we won't work, we'll just speak. I mean, how does God create? How does Jesus curse a fig tree? I mean, he just talks.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything, right? I mean, he's doing something, but he's just talking. And so part of the reason prayer and praise, all of that matters, is it's training us to use powerful words well. And so blessing is one of the ways we learn to use powerful words for good and not for evil. And that's why slander, malice, divisions, gossiping, that's why all that's spoken so harshly against is because those things have power beyond just, hey, they hurt my feelings, right? They're spiritual power imbued in
those
blessings or cursings.
Yeah, I was going to say the other side of that is those are actual curses.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that is the yin yang of blessing and curses.
That's right. So we can all think of the times when our parents said something, or our friends, or there was this thing said of us that was life defining, and that was a cursing. We're still overcoming that.
Right.
So yeah, the importance of speech is far beyond self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
There is a world of spiritual power out there in our words. So blessing becomes part of a greater training to use powerful words, well. That's why asking is the rule of the kingdom, right? We have to use words to accomplish work, but we can't do it by ourselves. And so asking becomes this rule of the kingdom, where in prayer we're doing a lot more than just, talking.
Yeah. This whole thing makes me think about just the design of all of this. And the intentionality that God had when he created this was not that we're in this alone. And that if we're in the process of us becoming whole and being blessed is through blessing and helping other people then become whole and being blessed, it's kind of blowing my mind just the feedback loop that does if we're doing it right. And then in the community that builds. And so I think seeing this from your angle, Mike, is kind of blowing it up into a bigger picture for me. We've been talking a lot about trying to see ourselves as whole, and it, kind of starting there, because we have so many issues with that. I do. But knowing that the process of even being or seeing ourselves as whole is helping other people do the same.
Totally. And that their
that's
wholeness
huge.
then helps us.
Right.
And you can see why the Bible hates self-righteousness, right? Because you can't bless if you're self-righteous.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't bless
Not
and
humble.
judge at the same time.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's an orientation.
This even gives a bigger meaning to the word humble. So a right view of oneself,
Yes.
humility. Like you cannot bless if you don't have a right view of oneself.
That's right.
Man, that's
right.
all these
exactly.
things are getting deeper.
Yeah, if I'm
Yeah.
walking in my shame, I won't bless because it's how their response is then a verdict on me.
Yeah.
And if I'm walking in my ego, I won't bless because I'm the one looking to be blessed.
Totally.
That sweet spot of like, hey, I'm not coming to anyone's rescue. I'm not, I'm not anyone's savior. But to just simply note what is good and what is shaloming in the world and what is flourishing in the world. I mean, that's the same as you go to a beautiful work of art and you have to share that. You have to take a picture and share it, right? You just can't enjoy that by yourself. And so
Right.
I think it's the same impulse. And we see that God, I mean, the first pages of the scriptures are all about God blessing. Right? He blessed them and said, increase the number. Abram, 5 times he's blessed. I mean, this is God's orientation towards us, which is the coolest bit of this.
So a question that just comes up is, are we being made whole or are we already whole and we're waking up to our wholeness?
Oh, that's so good, Timothy. It is, I gotta find this passage because it's both.
We got all day.
And well, salvation is 3 tenses in the New Testament, right? Paul talks about us having been saved, our being saved, and the fact that we will be saved. So our salvation is now and not yet, the same way everything in the kingdom is. Let me find this Hebrews passage. Here it is.
I found it too.
Because it's a race.
Yeah. So
Sordro.
Found it like a little bit before you, but it's fine.
where is it?
Go ahead.
So it's Hebrews 10.
Hebrews 10.
14.
Right? 14. That's what yeah.
That was it.
That was
Yep,
what I was
that-
thinking about. Is that the one
Yeah.
you're thinking of? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he says, for by one sacrifice, he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. So think of all the tenses in that.
Yeah,
For
I'm
by one
confused.
sacrifice in the past, he has, past tense, made perfect forever those who are being, present tense, made holy.
Wow.
So we're growing into our identity, right? In the same way when you first get married, you're a husband or a wife before you know what it is to be a husband or wife. You grow. Marriage actually grows you into what you already are.
Right.
So the way Christian formation and identity works is that you are declared certain things because of your union with Christ, and then you become them as you walk with Christ. So that's why you'll hear put off and put on, old nature, new nature. Image is being transformed to the image. I mean, those are all statements that are saying, listen, you've been made perfect forever, but you're now being made holy. So Paul he will start all his letters by calling out the holy ones. He will call them the saints, the hagioi. And he'll start there and then rebuke them for all sorts of nonsense. So both are true.
Right.
Right? They are the holy ones, but they're not conforming. So Paul in Ephesians, he says this beautifully. He's like, live a life fitting to the calling you already have. And so the invitation in moral formation isn't to do good so I get blessed,
Right.
or do good to get divine favor, but it's to become who I already am. Right? That's exactly what you're saying. So I am whole and being made whole simultaneously. And so what blessing does then is it helps me be oriented again around to the fact that I am being made whole. Instead of others noticing all my faults, all the false self I have to posture and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And the poser, now I can sit and rest in, okay, there is this real thing happening in me that somebody else has noticed. So now obviously flattery, we're not just talking about empty words.
Yes, right, because that gets dangerous.
Yeah, totally. I can just encourage just to be encouraged.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right? So that's not encouraging. That's not blessing. Blessing is obviously without agenda. and regardless of the reaction of the recipient. So, if I'm blessing, like I said, out of shame, I can just be doing that to try to cultivate a response.
Yeah, or out of ego, which I see.
Or out of ego. Same thing. Yes.
So good.
Yep. Tim, you're so good looking today.
Yes.
And it's just like, and
Tim, do you get this at shows where if you're playing, a band will come up to you, be like, "Oh, it sounded so good," and then you like feel obligated to return the favor? Yes. But I can't lie, so I'll be like, "Oh man, you guys really went up there." like I'll say something like really obvious. Yeah. Like, you guys did that.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, way to be up there.
Well, Mike and I's hero Stan Endicott would always say, "Man, that was something else.
Yeah,
that was unreal."
I had a guy that he'd be like, "That's the most recent set we've ever played."
Yeah, so
it's one of my favorite Tim Timmons expressions is, of all the transitions, that was one of them.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
no, what was or that wasn't one of them. Well, how do you say it?
That's it. Because I've one of my favorite or the worst intros ever I've had on a radio interview. I had it, and also I had it on a live, I was opening arena thing. They're like, "Hey, this is Tim Timmons, and he has cancer. Listen up." That was the intro, and I got up there, and I was so like, "What a oosh," that was so stupid, and so I just said, "Well, I've heard a lot of great introductions, and that was not one of them."
That was a rebuke. Those are necessary too.
Yes, they are.
I did that in front of there were a good 10,000 people that I just did. I was like, "You are an idiot." And I'm okay to call that out. I will curse.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I called it out at him. I don't know what I did. Who knows?
That wasn't cursing. No, that was just that was just stating the obvious. That was amazing.
This past week, I called my old girlfriend, who she was my girlfriend all through high school and into college. And
same digits?
No, they were digits.
Oh, wow.
I didn't call her. Sorry,
Okay.
we Instagram, and I asked her for her folks' number, if I could just call her folks. For some reason, I thought about them, just with being a dad now and thinking about my kids and going through some tough stuff, even just with my family right now. I was thinking about how powerful their presence was in my life growing up. Because one of the questions that our friend Kevin asks all the time is, who was the warmth in your home growing up?
Yeah.
And I just thought about this question going, oh, well, there was a season where my house was not warm. I loved my parents so much, and they were divorcing, and it was just a rough season. But what was warm was their house, my girlfriend's house, and her folks. And so I just called, and I just got to say thank you. You did this for me and for so many of us. And she's crying on the phone. The mom's crying on the phone. And it was like, oh, my gosh, what a gift that I just got to receive from doing this. And this just even makes that further, that it's not just affirming, but it's really this blessing of saying this is who God is in you and what you're representing and what he's made you to be. I mean, it's so powerful. So I guess as we move forward, people just think about what that could look like in this next week. I know we're going to jump into our next practice, but that's so exciting. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and Mike, you do embody this. I love hearing that that's your prayer, because that is something that I've already affirmed you before we started this thing about that. But that's something that you just do, and I've been a recipient of, and I just want to say thank you. Well done. So for all of us, that is the great invitation for this next season. So we are blessed, and then we get to go bless. Mike, thank you for being with us.
Oh, what an honor. Thank you, guys.
Mike, now we're going to do some questions and just make fun of you.
Perfect.
So before we jump into these dumb questions with Mike, and it is very funny, by the way, I just want to promote his podcast. It's called the VOX Podcast. It is so good, and it is so profound and challenging, and so I think that you will dig it, and it will encourage you a ton. If you want to learn more about 10,000 Minutes, please go to 10,000minutes.com. If you want to get the free text messages, you can just text 10K, 10K to the number 55678. So the number is 55678, and text 10K, and we'll give you free encouraging text messages each week. All right, this will be fun. Get ready. Well, Mike, thanks for being on this. You were something else today.
Totally.
Of all the guests that we've had, you're one of them.
Yes, you're the most recent.
Wow. Mike, we're going to jump into 10,000 questions, and this is like a rapid quick fire.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Timothy.
Okay, let's see how you do.
It's
Okay.
like Family Feud, the fast money.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes. It's just there's no money.
Lack of.
Okay, what is one thing you've always wanted to do?
Go to the opening ceremony of an Olympic Games.
Same.
All right.
Same?
Yeah. Tennis. I mean,
Tennis.
let's go.
Okay.
Apparently
When
this is
Say
Done.
less. Say less.
Okay, any
Tot-
pet peeves?
Oh, slow drivers in the fast lane.
You are so quick. This is so great. You are such a... You know what? Your family must be in stitches. Okay. Is that the best? How often does your wife get that? You guys
yeah.
must laugh
And she-
all the
yeah.
time at home.
She's like, actually, no.
Yes.
I don't think
Okay.
it's funny at all.
Okay, what is the thing you're most afraid of?
I would say being swallowed by a boa constrictor.
Wow, that's a big boa.
Whoa.
Is that true?
No, not at all. The thing I would be most afraid of would be looking back on life and regretting not doing the most important things well.
Okay. Well,
And then boa constrictors number 2.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I forgot about that one for a second.
are you scared of snakes? Like, does Noah... Because Mike comes and stays at my house every once in a while and at Hotel Timmons, and Noah just got a...
He just got a python.
Snake.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Does that make you nervous?
It does not.
If it was in your bed?
I woke up with a scorpion in a sleeping
Shut
bag
your
once, and that
face.
one was the one that got me. Yes.
Okay, so here's my second question. What's the craziest thing you've woken up with in your bed?
A scorpion.
Scorpion. Wow.
Like, let's hit that one out of the park, please.
Yes.
Lobbed it up.
Okay, what's your least favorite beverage?
LaCroix.
All right.
You just heard a bunch
I was
of people.
with you for so long.
Just wounded a bunch of
I'm
people.
mad that I'm not anymore.
It's kind of becoming a thing. Like, you're either for it or against it.
It's true.
Oh, there's a line. There is a line in the sand now,
okay
my
with
friends.
it.
I'm sorry. It's not masks. It's not vaccines. It's LaCroix.
It's true.
Well, we just had a little joyride with Mike the other night with a bunch of buddies, and we introduced Mike to some hot beverage. And I
Oh
don't.
my goodness.
It was spicy
The
beverage,
stag.
as in whiskey.
Oh,
So I
whiskey's
thought
a
you might
thing in
say that.
Tennessee, you guys.
It is
yes.
a thing.
No, that's
Take it
you know what?
seriously out here.
I had to do LaCroix though, just because you were talking about it before we went on air. So many of my attempts are just I want Tim to laugh. I just want Tim to laugh.
Just want to bless
That is
him with
so many.
laughter.
So we had Mike try basically for the first time, and we gave him some real good whiskey, and the guys were all telling him like what to do and how to sip it, how to smell it. It was. I have a good video of that.
Just throw it back.
Yeah, you know I've drank many things.
Yes, and
that was one of them.
Oh, man.
All right. What do you think of when I say fruit?
Basket.
All day. Okay. What does your name mean?
It means one who is like El or God.
Is it really?
Yeah, Mikhail.
Gosh.
One who is like El.
What's your
Yeah.
last name mean? What's Erre mean?
It was shortened at customs. It was something Austrian and Swiss.
Ooh, which
And so we have no idea what the original was. It was just ERRE at customs.
What could
so
it
we
have been?
It was probably something magnificent like Schweitzenfauser.
they just took the at the end.
It took the It was like, let's
Let's keep
expand
the
on
best
that.
part.
This is fine.
Mike Schweitzenfauser. We'll just call him Erre.
Yeah, and then the story is my grandparents lived near Lake Erie. They didn't know how to pronounce it, and so
They
there
just
you
went
go.
with it.
Gosh.
Right?
Yes.
I'm an onion. Timmons.
Who's your favorite bald guy in this room?
Oh my Lord, Tim Timmons by far.
Oh, no.
Timmons has been
Don't.
rocking the bald beard glasses look with so much authority that it's branded. It's his brand now. I mean, it's
You know what? This is a blessing.
It's one thing just to be good looking, but
Yeah.
then it's another thing to make
T-shirts.
like t-shirts and mugs.
I'm just hoping I can grow a beard before I'm bald. You know?
Mike, it's almost as if he said that as if bald was bad.
Yeah.
It was like a negative.
No, I just don't want to be all
Right.
bald.
Whoa.
Like,
Why?
Let's go
no,
weird.
no.
Sorry,
I
Mike.
need a beard. I just feel like I do.
I'm just blessing.
Yeah, you're just blessing people. So thank you for blessing us. Hashtag blessing.
I am blessed. Hashtag.
Okay, so here's the last section of this podcast, and thankfully Mike agreed to stay on with us for a few minutes. But it's previewing the experiment for this next week, and this one just so happens to be blessing our enemies. Mike, you got any thoughts on praying for your enemies?
Note Note that he looked at his watch first before he has
Like
to
this,
let the
might get out
record
of
show.
hand.
He knew Erre could go off for the next 10 minutes on this. And so he checked the watch. He's like, well, we've gone from rapid fire to...
What makes somebody an enemy?
Oh, my goodness. So Jesus's audience would have heard enemies very, very specifically. And the creative responses he invites them to embody in response to their enemies are ridiculously amazing. In other words, they're not returning evil for evil, but they're not being passive either. And so they're actually in a shame, like when you're required by a Roman soldier to carry his kit for a mile. That was a requirement. It was 1,000 paces. They could compel you legally to do that. So that's just not a hypothetical scenario. To offer to go another would be shaming to the Roman soldier. And so it would take you as the victim and place you as an equal next to the one that was trying to humiliate you. The turning of their cheek bit, there's a deep practice of slapping, believe it or not. The turning of the other cheek is an insult. This is not violence. This is an insult. So the way you would insult an inferior is that you would use your right hand. You would never use your left hand. You would use your right hand and you would slap somebody on their right cheek with the back of your hand. You would give them a backhand slap. And that's how superiors would insult inferiors, is they would be a backhanded slap. An open-handed slap would be the way that equals, that peers would insult each other. All right, it was still degrading. You were still insulting, but backhanded was just reserved for slaves and children. But an open hand was what you would use with a social peer. The context is someone backhands your cheek. When he says turn to them the other also, to be hit again, they would have to hit you with their open palm on the other cheek as an equal. So Jesus is engaging in creative honor-shame practices that don't require passivity, but at the same time aren't returning evil for evil. So loving enemies is this very creative, it's not having affection for them. It's this creative responding to the evil they put into the world that actually draws attention to it in the same way MLK. You know, we see these pictures and video images of dogs being let loose upon these and it stirs something in us. Yeah. Jesus is operating in much the same way. So love of enemies isn't affection for them. It's not I like them, but it is creative responses to evil that don't further evil, but demand that the offender treat you as an equal in terms of status. Wow. And it's fascinating stuff.
Wow. So what does it mean to pray for your enemies?
So to pray for them is one of the creative responses.
Or is it bless them or pray for them?
Well, it's both. He says both. Bless those who persecute you.
Yeah.
Pray for your enemies. So what do I want to use my words to do to my enemies? I want to hurt them. I want to punish them. I want to get back at them. I want to deepen the wounds. It's the opposite of blessing, right? And so to pray for them is teaching me to use words in ways that have power, in ways that don't bring harm to them. And so to pray for enemies, to love them, to bless them, all of those are saying the same things in different ways. Those are concrete actions to take that are creative in the face of evil, in the face of enemy, that are status sharing and could be shaming. So praying for enemies is then holding them before God and calling down divine favor upon them, or noting divine favor upon them, instead of using my words to, hurt, harm, and whatever else. And very often the prayer, at least in my experience, the prayers start out very small and shallow. Yeah. Like, God, I pray for this, and I name the person, and that's it. Yeah. Then they grow into a more full-orbed, in the same way that I see them. I go from seeing them as just their offense to seeing them as a full-orbed person. My prayers kind of echo that growth too. Yeah. And I've seen personally that practice absolutely transform my view towards people. Yeah. Absolutely. It's one of the most important things that we can do. And it's the distinctive mark of the kingdom. So only here, in terms of enemy love, does Jesus say, then you will be sons of the Father.
Right.
Which means you will be like the Father. Every tax collectors love the people who love them.
Right.
Nothing distinctive about that, but it's this cross-shaped practice that is uniquely Christian. And it's one of the closest ways we can embody Jesus likeness, right? To take someone with whom we have animosity and try to use our words to bring shalom. My words towards my enemies want to hurt them. Here, my words are trying to bless them.
Is it kind of I think it's Romans 12, is it when you're heaping coals?
Yes. Yeah.
By-
Give them something to drink. Give them something to eat. Show hospitality to your enemy, and you will not only do something to you, obviously, you'll do something to them.
Yeah, so I mean, this week we're actually going to be praying for our enemies. That is
I love it.
a practice that we're
Yes.
going to be going for. Do you have any thoughts? What would that look like to pray for enemies this week?
Well, let's put blessing and praying for enemies together.
Yeah.
So let's bless our enemies.
Yep.
And one of the ways, obviously, is through prayer. But what if there was something creative that could be done beyond that? And I just don't want to close that off. So to pray blessing for my enemy would be to recognize God's love, attention, care for them, that he's not defined them by their worst act or the act that has hurt me. And to stand outside of that hurt and invoke the name of Jesus to call down blessing upon them, regardless of whether or not they repent or they ask forgiveness or we're ever reconciled. And what that does is that brings me into kingdom dynamics.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not they join me there.
Yeah.
It brings me into kingdom dynamics that allow for me to be free from the hurt in ways I couldn't be otherwise.
Yeah. I love that.
It's one of those things where I've had seasons where I've been so hurt or so angry that the only way through was to pray blessing
Yeah.
over them. Because there was no way I could get there myself.
Yeah.
No way.
That's really good. It hit me years ago when we've talked about this so many times that the good news is actually this availability of the kingdom, not the thing that we've always thought it was. It's about seeking first the kingdom of God, not my kingdom or women your queendom. So that was this aha moment for me. Like, oh, my kingdom isn't the most important thing here to defend. So every time I get offended, it's
so
or
good.
who I've asked the question often, like, so when was the last time you got offended? And everybody kind of thinks of their thing. And I said, so whose kingdom or queendom was threatened?
Yeah.
And it's always mine. Always.
Always.
And it's just this idea of, okay, so even in that moment, when I'm praying for my enemies, I'm going, okay, I want to bless them, because that changes my heart in the midst of it.
I was reflecting. You asked me that question once. I was defensive in a meeting, and you're like, hey, so what kingdom was threatened there? And it was such a powerful question, because that you boiled it down to what it was, right? It was, I felt like there was something I had to protect. And when we get in that space, it is impossible to bless.
So true. Gosh.
Right? Bless only comes out of a generous, it's scarcity or abundance mindset. So it only comes out of an abundance place. Right? Wow. And for me, things can be zero-sum game. So if you win, I lose. So blessing or even blessing enemies is getting me out of that way of thinking. But that's so good, Tim, the idea that we're agents of kingdom renewal, and not just for other people, but we're participating with the Spirit for our own sakes as well. And bro, I mean, calling you out, this has been one of your core practices. This has been, ever since I've known you, this is the thing. And if you're going to pick one, this is the most distinctly Christian one to pick.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one. Yeah.
Yeah. That was what was so distinctive. Father, forgive them as they're nailing me to the cross.
Right.
That's the picture.
Gosh. So good. So people, this week, that is the invitation. Try that out. Practice it. It's an experiment. That's the whole point of the experiment. This is our hypothesis, thinking maybe they will not change, but I pretty much guarantee that our hearts will be changed this week.
That's exactly right. Yeah. All of this is done independent of their response.
Yeah.
And one of the heart checks for me is, am I engaging in what could be perceived as a really holy and righteous thing? Am I doing it to get something? And often the answer is yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I want them to see what they've done. I want them to, and I take a posture that it isn't what a blessing. It's actually, I'm manipulating.
Yes. Right. I'm sure we'll even find that this week. man, I tried to do this, but I was actually trying to get back at them
Yeah.
and heat
Totally,
burning coals in
totally.
their head because I was like so
Yes.
pissed about
Yes.
whatever they did.
Totally.
But what's the way of the kingdom?
Yeah. You guys are just doing great stuff and asking really great questions. I mean, this is the Sermon on the Mount,
Yeah.
right? This is like beyond doctrine. This is the way of Jesus. This is the narrow path that he's talking about, obeying his teaching when it comes to how it is that we treat others.
Wow.
And what's great is discipleship so often has just been purely an intellectual thing. And there's a part to that, of course. Our imaginations need to be expanded. Somebody put on Twitter the other day, and I thought it was genius. They just don't show me motivation, show me habits. Because motivation obviously comes and goes. Show me habits. And so I just proud of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because not all the habits will stick, but they're just all designed to wake us up.
Yeah. So good, Mike. Thank you so much for spending the morning
So
with us.
fun.
So, guys, I feel like we're going to cut most of that, but I feel like his heart was really in it.
His lighting is really nice. Maybe we can take
Yeah.
a photo.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Michael, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, guys.
You wrecked
Appreciate
us.
you, Chris. Good to see you, man.
Good to meet you,
Look forward
buddy.
to seeing you more.
Yeah, me too.
Moy, you're
Yes.
killing it, dude.
I'm winning.
You're winning.
Thanks,
You're
Mom.
winning.
Thanks, you guys, for listening to another 10,000 minute experiment. And next week, we've got the one and only Carlos Whitaker hanging out. So, see you next Tuesday.